The door exploded inward. Victoria Hayes stood in the doorway, chest heaving, eyes burning with fury. "Daniel Carter, you're fired!" Behind him, 8-year-old Lily dropped her cereal spoon. Milk splattered across the table. Daniel stood frozen in his worn sweatpants, unshaven, exhausted from another sleepless night with his sick daughter. The most powerful woman in architectural design had just invaded his home on a Saturday morning to destroy his life. But here's what neither of them knew. This moment, this terrible, humiliating moment, would change everything. Not the way you'd expect. Not even close. Drop a comment with your city name so I can see how far this story travels. The door didn't just open. It flew off its hinges like something out of a nightmare. Daniel Carter had exactly 2 seconds to register what was happening before Victoria Hayes stormed into his apartment like a force of nature. Her auburn hair, usually perfect, looked like she'd been running her hands through it for hours. Her designer coat was buttoned wrong. Her eyes, God, her eyes, were filled with the kind of rage that made grown men step backward. Daniel stepped backward. "You," Victoria said, pointing at him. "You're done. Finished. I've had it, Daniel. You're fired." The words hit him like a physical blow. He actually felt his chest tighten. "Victoria, what?" "Don't." She held up her hand. "Don't you dare stand there and pretend you don't know exactly why I'm here." Behind him, Daniel heard a small sound. He turned to see Lily frozen at the kitchen table, her spoonful of Cheerios suspended in midair, milk dripping back into the bowl. Her brown eyes, Rachel's eyes, were wide with fear. "Daddy?" Her voice was barely a whisper. Daniel's protective instincts kicked in immediately. He positioned himself between his daughter and Victoria, his hand raised in a calming gesture.
"Lily, sweetheart, it's okay. Everything's okay."
"Everything is not okay," Victoria snapped. "Everything is the opposite of okay, Daniel. The Westfield Project. Ring any bells?" Daniel's stomach dropped. The Westfield Project. The multi-million-dollar commercial development that could make or break Hayes' architectural design. The project he'd been leading for 6 months. The deadline that was yesterday. The deadline was yesterday. "Oh God," he breathed. "Oh, God is right." Victoria stepped closer, her heels clicking against his cheap laminate flooring. "The client called me this morning. Do you know what time it was when Harold Westfield called me personally, Daniel? Do you?" Daniel shook his head. 6:45. In the morning. On a Saturday. Victoria's voice rose with each word. "He woke me up to tell me that his team never received the final renderings. The renderings that you were responsible for. The renderings that were due yesterday."
"I can explain."
"Can you? Can you really?" Victoria laughed. But there was no humor in it. "Because I've been waiting for you to explain for months, Daniel. Months. The missed meetings, the late submissions, the conference calls you ducked out of early. I've been dropping hints since March that something needed to change." "I didn't realize." "You didn't realize?" Victoria's voice cracked. "I told you in April that your performance was slipping. I told you in May that the team was covering for you. I told you in June that you needed to get it together. What part of that was unclear?" Daniel opened his mouth, but no words came out. She was right. She was absolutely right. He'd heard the hints. He'd just been too exhausted, too overwhelmed, too deep in survival mode to really process them.
"Daddy, who is she?"
Lily had gotten down from her chair and was now standing beside Daniel, her small hand gripping his sweatpants. Her stuffed penguin, Mr. Waddles, was clutched against her chest like a shield. Victoria seemed to notice the child for the first time. Really notice her. Her eyes moved from Lily to Daniel, then around the apartment. Daniel watched her take in the mismatched furniture, the walls covered with Lily's artwork, The calendar on the refrigerator, crammed with notations in different colored markers. School events, doctor appointments, playdates, prescription pickup reminders. The calendar of a single parent barely holding it together. "I'm sorry," Lily said quietly, looking up at Victoria. "Did my daddy do something bad?" Victoria's expression flickered. Something human passed behind her eyes for just a moment before the corporate mask slammed back into place. "Lily," Daniel said gently, kneeling down to her level, "can you go to your room for a little bit? Miss Hayes and I need to have a grown-up conversation." "But your voice sounds funny. Are you scared?" Out of the mouths of babes, Daniel almost laughed.
Almost. I'm okay, sweetheart. Maybe you can work on that space station model we started. I'll come check on you in a few minutes.
Lily looked at Victoria one more time, her small face serious in that way children get when they know something important is happening. "You shouldn't yell at my daddy," she said to Victoria. "Yelling isn't nice. That's what Mrs. Patterson says at school." Then she turned and walked down the hallway, Mr. Waddles tucked under her arm, leaving Daniel and Victoria alone in a silence that felt thick enough to cut. "She has Rachel's eyes," Daniel said quietly, more to himself than to Victoria. "Who's Rachel?" Daniel looked at her. "My wife. She died 3 years ago. Car accident." Victoria's face changed again. The anger didn't disappear, but it shifted, complicated itself. "I didn't know." "Why would you? You took over the firm 6 months ago. Your father never mentioned it?" "My father mentioned a lot of things.
I couldn't possibly remember all of them."
Daniel nodded slowly. He gestured toward the small kitchen table. "Do you want to sit down? I can make coffee." "I don't want coffee, Daniel. I want an explanation." "And I'll give you one. But can we at least sit? My legs aren't working right." Victoria hesitated, then moved to the table and sat down, her posture rigid. Daniel took the seat across from her, noticing for the first time how his hands were shaking. "The designs are done," he said. "The Westfield renderings. They're finished. They're on my laptop right now. Some of the best work I've ever done." "Then why didn't you send them?" Daniel ran both hands through his hair. He hadn't showered, hadn't shaved. He probably looked exactly like what he was, a man running on empty. "Lily got sick Thursday night. Fever of 103. She was up all night, crying, throwing up. I stayed with her until morning, then took her to urgent care.
The doctor said it was a stomach bug, gave us prescriptions. By the time I got her home and settled, she was worse. She couldn't keep anything down. I sat with her all day, all night. Yesterday morning, the fever finally broke." He looked up at Victoria. "I forgot, okay? I just forgot. In between the vomiting and the fever and the crying and the 2 hours of sleep I got in 3 days, the Westfield deadline slipped my mind. There's no excuse for it, I know that. I'm not trying to make excuses, I'm just telling you what happened." Victoria was quiet for a long moment. "And there's no one else? No one who could have helped?" "My parents are in Arizona. Rachel's mother lives across town, but she's 72 and has her own health issues. I've got friends, sure, but you can't call someone at 2 in the morning when your kid is sick and ask them to babysit while you finish a work project." "Why not?" Daniel stared at her. "Because that's not how it works. Because everyone has their own lives. Because asking for help..." He stopped, shook his head. "You wouldn't understand. Try me. Every time I ask for help, it feels like admitting I can't do this. Like admitting that I'm failing at the one job that actually matters, being Lily's dad." Victoria leaned back in her chair. For the first time since she'd arrived, she didn't look angry. She looked something else. Daniel couldn't quite read it. "I lost my mother when I was 12, she said quietly. Daniel blinked. "What?"
Cancer. It took about 8 months from diagnosis to the end. My father dealt with it by burying himself in work. He was at the office 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. I basically raised myself from middle school on. Victoria, I had no idea. No one does. I don't talk about it. She stood up abruptly and walked to the window, looking out at the gray morning. My father thought he was being strong, thought he was providing for me by keeping the business going. He didn't understand that what I needed wasn't money or a nice house or a good school. I needed him. I needed him to be there. She turned back to Daniel. But you're there, aren't you? That's the problem. You're so there for Lily that everything else falls apart. I don't know how to do both, Daniel admitted. I used to think I could. When Rachel was alive, we had a system. We were partners. Now it's just me, and there aren't enough hours in the day. There aren't enough hours in the week. Victoria nodded slowly. She walked back to the table, but didn't sit down. She stood there, looking down at him, and Daniel could see the war happening behind her eyes. The business side of her brain fighting against something else, something that looked almost like empathy. The designs, she said finally. How good are they? Excuse me? You said they're some of the best work you've ever done. Were you exaggerating? Daniel shook his head. I never exaggerate about my work. You know that. Your father knew that. It's why he hired me in the first place. Show me. Daniel hesitated, then got up and retrieved his laptop from the bedroom. He opened the Westfield files and turned the screen toward Victoria. She leaned in, scrolling through the renderings, her expression unreadable. Minutes passed. Neither of them spoke. These are exceptional, Victoria said finally. I told you. The atrium design. I've never seen anything like it. The way the natural light integrates with the structural elements. This is beyond what the client asked for. I know what they asked for. I also know what they actually need, even if they don't know it themselves. That's my job. Victoria straightened up. Send these to me, right now. I'll submit them to Westfield with an apology. Maybe we can salvage the relationship. Daniel nodded, quickly attaching the files to an email. Done. That doesn't change anything, Victoria said. The files being good doesn't erase months of missed deadlines. It doesn't erase the meetings you skipped. It doesn't erase the fact that I can't rely on you. I know. I have a business to run, Daniel. A business my father built from nothing. A business with 47 employees whose mortgages depend on us staying profitable. I can't let sentimentality get in the way of that. I'm not asking you to. Then what are you asking? Daniel looked at her. Really looked at her. Past the corporate armor and the carefully constructed facade. He saw something there he hadn't expected. Something wounded. I'm asking for nothing, he said. You came here to fire me, and you're right to do it. I've been slipping for months. I've been making excuses instead of solutions. You gave me chances, and I wasted them. The severance you mentioned, 2 months? That's generous. More than generous. I'll figure something out. Victoria's jaw tightened. Just like that? You're not going to fight for your job? With what? My track record speaks for itself. You've been more than fair. That's not... She stopped herself, pressing her lips together. That's not what I expected you to say. What did you expect? I don't know. Begging? Promises to do better? Explanations about how it won't happen again. Daniel smiled sadly. I can't promise it won't happen again. Lily will get sick again. There will be school emergencies again. There will be nights when I don't sleep and mornings when I can barely function. That's my life now. I can't change it, and I won't apologize for it.
Victoria was quiet for a long time. Somewhere down the hall, they could hear Lily talking to herself, narrating some imaginary adventure with Mr. Waddles. She really loves penguins, huh? The question was so unexpected that Daniel laughed. What? The stuffed penguin. There are penguin drawings on the refrigerator. Penguin magnets.
She's been obsessed since we took her to the zoo when she was 4. Rachel used to call her our little penguin. Said she waddled the same way when she was learning to walk. Daniel's voice caught slightly. Sorry, I don't usually talk about Rachel. Don't apologize. Victoria picked up her bag. I should go. I've taken up enough of your Saturday. Daniel stood and walked her to the door. The hallway felt smaller than before, more cramped. Or maybe that was just the weight of everything that had happened. Victoria, he said as she reached for the doorknob. She turned. Thank you. For the severance. For being direct instead of stringing me along. I know that's weird to say, but I appreciate it. Victoria studied him for a moment. You're an unusual man, Daniel Carter. So I've been told. My father always said you were the most talented architect he'd ever worked with. He said you had vision, that you could see things other people couldn't. Your father was generous. My father was never generous. He was accurate. Victoria opened the door, then paused. The zoo. When does it open? 9, I think. Why? No reason. She stepped into the hallway. Goodbye, Daniel. Goodbye, Victoria. The door closed behind her, and Daniel leaned against it, his eyes closed. His heart was still pounding. His hands were still shaking. He had just lost his job, his health insurance, his financial stability. But somehow, in the midst of all that loss, something else had happened. Something he couldn't quite name. Daddy? He opened his eyes to find Lily standing at the end of the hallway, Mr. Waddles still in her arms. Hey, sweetie, you can come out now. The grown-up conversation is over. Lily walked toward him slowly. You look sad. Daniel knelt down and pulled her into a hug. She smelled like strawberry shampoo and Cheerios. She smelled like home. I'm okay, Lily. Are you sure? Because you're hugging me really tight. Daniel laughed and loosened his grip. Sorry, I just love you a lot. I know. Lily patted his cheek with her small hand. Did that lady fire you? Daniel hesitated. How do you explain job loss to an 8-year-old? How do you tell your child that daddy messed up, that daddy couldn't hold it together, that the future just got a whole lot more uncertain? We can talk about it later, okay? How about some more breakfast? I'm not hungry anymore. Lily looked toward the front door. She wasn't that scary, you know. Her eyes were sad, like she wanted to cry, but forgot how. Daniel stared at his daughter. What makes you say that? I just saw it. Sometimes people look mean when they're actually just sad. Mrs. Patterson taught us that too. Daniel pulled Lily close again. Mrs. Patterson sounds very wise. She is. She's the wisest. They stayed like that for a long moment, father and daughter, holding each other in the aftermath of a storm neither of them fully understood. Outside, the Saturday morning traffic hummed along, oblivious. The world kept turning, indifferent to one man's collapse. But Daniel had been here before. 3 years ago, standing in a hospital hallway, a doctor's words echoing in his ears. Your wife didn't make it. I'm so sorry. He had survived that. He would survive this. Lily? Yeah, Daddy? How would you feel about going to the zoo today? Lily pulled back, her face lighting up. Really? But you said we couldn't afford it this month. I think we can make an exception. Just this once. Can we see the penguins? We can see all the penguins. Lily squealed and threw her arms around him again. You're the best daddy in the whole world. Daniel held her tight, his eyes burning with tears he wouldn't let fall. He wasn't the best daddy in the whole world. He was a mess, a failure, a man who couldn't keep his own life together. But he was here. He was present. He was trying. And right now, that would have to be enough. 3 hours later, Daniel and Lily stood in front of the penguin enclosure at the city zoo. Lily pressed her face against the glass, giggling as a particularly bold penguin waddled right up to her. "Daddy, look! He's saying hi to me!" "I think you're right. What are you going to name him?" "Mr. Waddles Jr., because he waddles just like my Mr. Waddles." Daniel smiled, but his mind was elsewhere. He kept replaying the morning's conversation with Victoria. The anger in her voice, the pain behind her eyes, the way she'd looked at Lily's artwork on the walls, the calendar on the refrigerator, the way she'd asked about the penguins. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, expecting spam or maybe a text from Rachel's mother. It was an email from Victoria Hayes. His thumb hovered over the notification for a long moment before he opened it. "Daddy, you're not looking." "Sorry, sweetie. Just 1 second." He read the email. "Daniel, I've been thinking about our conversation. Please call me Monday morning. There's something I want to discuss. Also, enclosed is a little something for Lily. Consider it an apology for ruining her breakfast. Victoria." Attached was a digital gift certificate for the City Zoo's annual family pass. Daniel stared at his phone. The gift certificate was worth $300, enough for unlimited visits for an entire year. "Daddy, what's wrong? You look weird." Daniel looked down at his daughter, her face still pressed against the penguin glass, her eyes full of simple joy. "Nothing's wrong, Lily. Nothing at all." But that wasn't quite true. Something had shifted. Something he didn't understand yet. Victoria Hayes had fired him this morning, screamed at him in his own home, made him feel like the biggest failure in the world. And then she'd sent his daughter a zoo pass. Who does that? Daniel pocketed his phone and knelt down beside Lily, watching Mr. Waddles Jr. slip into the water with a graceful dive. "Daddy?" "Yeah, sweetie?" "I think that lady might be nice. Deep down." Daniel watched the penguins swim, their awkward bodies suddenly graceful underwater. "You know what, Lily? I think you might be right." Monday morning arrived like a punch to the gut. Daniel had barely slept. Sunday night, he'd lain awake staring at the ceiling, running numbers in his head. Mortgage payment, Lily's school tuition, health insurance, groceries, utilities, car payment. The numbers kept adding up, and the total kept looking worse. 2 months severance. That's what Victoria had promised. 2 months to find a new job in a market that wasn't exactly booming for architects. 2 months to somehow reinvent his entire life. He dropped Lily at school with a smile that felt like plastic on his face. She'd chattered the whole drive about Mr. Waddles Jr. and the zoo pass, and how they could go see the penguins every single weekend now if they wanted. Daniel had nodded and agreed, and felt his heart break a little more with each word. How was he going to tell her? How do you explain to an 8-year-old that Daddy lost his job because he couldn't keep it together? That the zoo pass might be the last nice thing they could afford for a while? You don't, he decided. You figure it out. You fix it. That's what dads do. The apartment felt different when he got back. Emptier somehow, even though nothing had changed. The same mismatched furniture, the same artwork on the walls, the same calendar on the refrigerator with its riot of colored markers. But the silence was different. Usually at this hour, Daniel would be at his desk at Hayes Architectural Design, surrounded by colleagues, buried in blueprints and client meetings. Now he stood in his own kitchen, a second cup of coffee growing cold in his hands, and wondered what the hell he was supposed to do with himself. He sat down at the kitchen table and opened his laptop. Time to update the resume. Time to start applying. Time to pretend that everything was fine and that he was a totally normal, totally reliable job candidate who definitely wouldn't miss deadlines because his kid got sick. By noon, he'd applied to 15 positions. None of them felt right. Too far away, too demanding, not enough flexibility, not enough pay. He found himself staring at each job listing and mentally calculating how he'd manage school pickups, sick days, parent-teacher conferences. The math never worked. His phone rang at 12:47. Unknown number. Hello? Daniel, it's Victoria Hayes. His stomach dropped. He sat up straighter, as if she could see him through the phone. Victoria, I wasn't expecting... Did you get the files okay? The Westfield renderings? I did. I submitted them to the client this morning with a personal apology. And Harold Westfield called me an hour ago. He loved them. Daniel exhaled. That's good. That's really good. He said the atrium design exceeded his expectations. He said it was worth the wait. So the project is saved? The project is saved. Victoria paused. But that's not why I'm calling. Daniel gripped the phone tighter. Okay. I've been thinking about our conversation, about what you said. I said a lot of things. I was kind of rambling. You said you couldn't promise it wouldn't happen again. Lily getting sick, emergencies, sleepless nights. You said that's your life now, and you couldn't change it. I remember. That was honest. I appreciated it. Daniel didn't know what to say, so he said nothing. I also said I've been dropping hints for months, Victoria continued. That wasn't entirely fair of me. Hints are passive. They're easy to miss, especially when you're drowning. I should have been more direct earlier. That's on me. Victoria, you don't have to. Let me finish. Her voice was firm, but not angry. Not like Saturday. I've been running my father's company for 6 months. I've been trying to do everything exactly the way he did it, because I thought that was the only way to honor what he built. But my father never had to worry about things like work-life balance or flexible schedules. He had my mother to handle all of that until she died. And after that, he just checked out of everything except work. Daniel thought about what she'd told him on Saturday. Her mother dying when she was 12, raising herself. He thought about Lily's observation. She wasn't that scary. Her eyes were sad. I don't want to be my father, Victoria said quietly. Not in that way. What are you saying? I'm saying I have a proposition for you. Daniel's heart started beating faster. I'm listening. I can't keep you on as a full-time architect. That position requires someone who can be in the office consistently, attend client meetings, make presentations, meet deadlines without fail. That's not your reality right now. I get that. I understand. However, Victoria continued, your design work is exceptional. It always has been. My father used to say you were the best pure designer he'd ever worked with. The Westfield project proved he was right. I appreciate that, but I'm offering you a remote contract position. Daniel stopped breathing for a moment. What? Work from home. Focus solely on design work. No client meetings, no presentations, no office politics. Just doing what you do best, on a flexible schedule that works around Lily's needs. You're serious. I'm always serious, Daniel. The pay would be project-based, less than your former salary, but with potential for bonuses on exceptional work. And you'd be free to take on other clients as well, as long as there's no conflict of interest. Daniel stood up from the table and walked to the window. His hands were shaking again, but this time for a different reason. Why would you do this? He asked. Saturday morning, you were ready to end me. You showed up at my apartment and screamed that I was fired. I know. So what changed? Victoria was quiet for a moment. I saw your calendar. My calendar? On your refrigerator. All those colored markers, school events, doctor appointments, play dates, prescription pickups. Every single thing in your daughter's life, color-coded and organized. That's not the calendar of someone who doesn't care about his responsibilities. That's the calendar of someone who's trying desperately to do everything at once. Daniel felt his throat tighten. I never thought about it like that. I did. I spent all of Saturday thinking about it, and Sunday, and this morning before I called you. And you decided to give me another chance? I decided to try something different. The traditional office model doesn't work for everyone. Maybe it's time Hayes Architectural Design evolved. Daniel pressed his palm against the cool window glass. Outside, life was happening. Cars driving, people walking. The world completely unaware that his life had just shifted on its axis for the second time in 3 days. What about health insurance? He asked. Lily needs coverage. We can work something out. Maybe a minimum number of guaranteed projects to qualify for benefits. I'll have my HR person draw up the details. And the team? Won't they resent the special treatment? Let me worry about that. Victoria's voice softened slightly. So, do we have a deal? Daniel thought about Lily, about the stability this would offer, about being home when she got back from school, about not having to race against traffic every afternoon, terrified he'd be late for pickup, about not having to choose between his daughter and his career. Yes, he said. Yes, we have a deal. Good. He could hear the smile in her voice. Check your email. I sent you something. What is it? You'll see. Welcome back to the team, Daniel. I'll be in touch about the first project. The line went dead. Daniel lowered the phone and immediately opened his email. There it was, at the top of his inbox, a message from Victoria Hayes. Inside was a digital gift certificate for the City Zoo's annual family pass, the same one he'd seen yesterday, along with a note. For Lily, everyone deserves a second chance, even penguins. Daniel laughed. He actually laughed out loud, standing alone in his empty apartment, the sound echoing off the walls. He called his mother immediately. Danny, is everything okay? You never call in the middle of the day. I'm fine, Mom. Better than fine. I just got some good news. What happened? Daniel told her everything. The firing, the conversation with Victoria, the unexpected phone call, the remote position. His mother was quiet for a long moment. This woman sounds special. She's my boss, Mom. Contract employer, you said. That's different. It's not that different. Danny, listen to me. You've been alone for 3 years. Rachel would want you to be happy. She would want Lily to have... Mom, stop. It's not like that. Victoria Hayes is a business professional who made a business decision. That's all. If you say so. His mother didn't sound convinced. But I've heard how your voice changed when you talked about her. You haven't sounded like that in a long time. I sounded like someone who just got their job back. You sounded like someone who might be waking up. Daniel didn't know how to respond to that, so he changed the subject. They talked for a few more minutes about Lily, about the zoo pass, about his parents' plans to visit for Thanksgiving. By the time he hung up, Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in months. Hope. He spent the rest of the afternoon setting up a home office in the corner of his bedroom. He moved the small desk from Lily's room, organized his drafting supplies, made sure his laptop and external monitor were positioned just right. It wasn't much, nothing like the sleek workstation he'd had at the firm, but it was his. And more importantly, it was here. Home. Where he could work and still be present for his daughter. When he picked Lily up from school, she noticed immediately. You look different, Daddy. Different how?
I don't know, less tired. Did you take a nap? Daniel laughed and took her hand as they walked to the car. No nap, but I got some good news today. What kind of good news? Remember Ms. Hayes, the lady who came to our apartment on Saturday? Lily's face darkened slightly. The yelling lady. Well, she called me today, and she's going to let me work from home now. What does that mean? It means I'll be here when you get home from school, every day. I won't have to rush to pick you up anymore. I can be here for breakfast and help you with homework. And we won't have to worry about running late all the time. Lily stopped walking. Really? Really. Forever? We'll see how it goes, but that's the plan. Lily's face broke into the biggest smile Daniel had seen in months. She threw her arms around his waist and squeezed tight. That's the best news ever, Daddy. I thought you might like it. Does this mean we can make pancakes on school days? Real pancakes, not the frozen kind? Daniel laughed. We can definitely try. They walked the rest of the way hand in hand, Lily chattering about all the things they could do now that Daddy would be home more. Movie nights on weekdays, after-school snacks together, maybe even a puppy. Let's not get ahead of ourselves in the puppy, Daniel said. But he was smiling. That night, after dinner and homework and bath time and the nightly story, Daniel sat on the edge of Lily's bed for their usual chat. Daddy? Yes, sweetie? Is Miss Hayes still mad at you? Daniel thought about it. I don't think so. I think she was just stressed on Saturday. Sometimes grown-ups get stressed, and they don't handle it the best way. Like when I got mad at Emily for taking my crayons, and I called her a poopy head? Kind of like that, yeah. But then I said sorry, and we were friends again. Exactly. Lily was quiet for a moment, her brow furrowed in that way she got when she was processing something complicated. Daddy, is Miss Hayes lonely? The question caught Daniel off guard. Why do you ask that? Because she looked lonely. When she was standing in our kitchen, she was looking at all my drawings on the wall, and she looked, I don't know, like she wished she had drawings on her wall, too. Daniel didn't know what to say. His 8-year-old had noticed something that he'd been too overwhelmed to see. Victoria Hayes, the powerful CEO, the woman who had everything. She'd looked at their messy little apartment full of a child's artwork and mismatched furniture, and she'd looked... what? Wistful? I think maybe she works a lot, Daniel said carefully. Sometimes when people work a lot, they don't have as much time for things like drawings on walls. That's sad. It can be. Maybe we should invite her over for dinner. Daniel laughed nervously. I don't think she's very busy. You're busy too, but you always make time for dinner with me. Out of the mouths of babes, Daniel thought again. His daughter had a way of cutting right to the heart of things. We'll see, he said, which was parent speak for probably not. And Lily seemed to know it. Okay. She snuggled deeper into her covers. But I think she'd like it. Our dinners are nice. Daniel kissed her forehead. They are nice. Now get some sleep, okay? Big day tomorrow. Every day's a big day when you're 8, Lily said solemnly, and Daniel had to bite back a laugh. True, very true. Good night, sweetheart. Night, Daddy. I love you. I love you too, more than all the penguins in the world. That's a lot of penguins. That's the point. He turned off the light and closed the door softly behind him. The next few weeks settled into a new rhythm. Daniel's first project under the remote arrangement came through. A renovation design for a downtown law firm. Small compared to Westfield, but perfect for proving that the new setup could work. He established a routine,
Up at 6 to shower and make breakfast. Walk Lily to the bus stop at 7:30. Work from 8 to 3 when Lily got home. Afternoons were for homework and snacks and whatever she wanted to do. Evenings were for dinner, bath time, stories, and then a few more hours of work after she was asleep. It wasn't perfect. There were still days when the work piled up and the deadlines loomed, and Daniel felt that familiar panic rising in his chest. But those days were fewer now, and when they came, he didn't have to choose between falling behind at work and being there for his daughter. He could do both. Victoria checked in periodically, short emails about project timelines, brief calls to discuss design direction. She was professional, efficient, all business. But occasionally, something else would slip through. A question about how Lily was doing. A comment about the zoo pass. Small things that suggested she was thinking about more than just work. "The law firm loved your initial concepts," she told him during one call, 3 weeks into the arrangement. "They're moving forward with a full design." "That's great news." "Your work is exactly what we needed, Daniel. I'm getting inquiries from other clients who want the same designer who did Westfield." "I'm glad it's working out." "So am I." Victoria paused. "How's Lily?" The question, casual as it sounded, made Daniel smile. "She's good. She got an A on her spelling test yesterday. She's very proud of herself." "She should be. Spelling is hard." "She wants to know if we can get a puppy." Victoria laughed, actually laughed, a warm sound that Daniel had never heard from her before. "What did you tell her?" "I told her we'd see." The parental deflection, classic. "It's a survival skill." "I bet." Another pause. "Daniel, I was thinking." "About what?" "The quarterly client dinner is coming up next month. It's a firm tradition, all the partners, major clients, that sort of thing. Very fancy, very boring, but important for business." "Okay. I'd like you to come." Daniel blinked. "To the client dinner?" "You're one of our lead designers now, even if you work remotely. It would be good for clients to meet you. Put a face to the name." "I don't know, Victoria. Social events aren't really my strong suit these days. It's one evening, a few hours. Think of it as a business obligation." Daniel thought about it. He hadn't been to anything resembling a social function since Rachel's death. The idea of making small talk with strangers, pretending to be charming and put together while drinking wine he couldn't afford on his own. It sounded exhausting. But Victoria was right. It was part of the job. And she'd given him a second chance when she didn't have to. The least he could do was show up to one dinner. "Okay," he said. "I'll be there." "Good. I'll send you the details." Victoria's voice softened slightly. "And Daniel?" "Yeah?" "Thank you. For being willing to try something different. I know it wasn't easy." "It's working," Daniel said. "That's what matters." "It is working," Victoria agreed. "It really is." After they hung up, Daniel sat at his desk, staring at his computer screen without really seeing it. His mother's words echoed in his head. "You sounded like someone who might be waking up." Maybe she was right. Maybe, after 3 years of survival mode, something was finally shifting. The work was going well. Lily was happy. He was present in a way he hadn't been able to be for too long. And Victoria Hayes, the woman who had stormed into his apartment and yelled, "You're fired," was turning out to be nothing like he expected. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Lily still into penguins? There's a new exhibit opening at the zoo this weekend. Thought she might like it. V." Daniel stared at the message. His boss, contract employer, whatever, was texting him about penguin exhibits for his daughter. He typed back, "She'd love it. Thanks for the heads up." The response came immediately. "Maybe I'll see you there." Daniel read those 5 words at least a dozen times, trying to figure out what they meant. Was it an invitation? A casual comment? Just making conversation? His phone buzzed again. That wasn't weird, was it? I didn't mean it to be weird. Daniel laughed and typed back. Not weird. We'll probably be there Saturday morning. Lily's an early bird. Good to know, Victoria responded. Enjoy the exhibit. And that was it. But Daniel sat there for a long time afterward, his coffee going cold beside him, thinking about a woman with sad eyes who sent zoo passes to children she barely knew and texted about penguin exhibits in the middle of a workday. Lily was right, he realized. Victoria Hayes was lonely. And maybe, just maybe, so was he. Saturday came faster than Daniel expected. He'd spent the rest of the week trying not to think about Victoria's text. Maybe I'll see you there. 5 simple words that had somehow taken up permanent residence in his brain. It didn't mean anything, he told himself. She was just being friendly, professional, showing interest in her employee's family, because that's what good leaders do. But he still ironed his shirt that morning, and he still put on actual pants instead of the sweatpants he usually wore on weekends. And he still checked his hair in the mirror 3 times before Lily dragged him out the door. Daddy, come on! The penguins are waiting! The penguins aren't going anywhere, Lily. But what if they miss me? Daniel laughed and grabbed his keys. Then we'd better hurry. The zoo was already crowded by the time they arrived. Families everywhere, kids running ahead of exhausted parents, the smell of popcorn and cotton candy mixing with something vaguely animal. Lily pulled Daniel toward the penguin exhibit with the determination of someone on a mission. The new exhibit is this way. I saw a sign. Slow down, sweetheart. I can't run as fast as you. That's because you're old. I'm 34. That's super old. Daniel was about to defend his age when he saw her. Victoria was standing near the entrance to the new penguin habitat, looking entirely out of place in her designer jeans and cashmere sweater. Her hair was down, softer than he'd ever seen it at the office. She was holding a cup of coffee and looking around with a slightly lost expression of someone who hadn't been to a zoo in decades. She spotted them at the same moment. Daniel, she smiled, and it transformed her whole face. Lily, you made it. Lily stopped pulling on Daniel's hand and stared up at Victoria with wide eyes. You're the yelling lady. Lily, Daniel started, but Victoria laughed. I deserve that. I was pretty loud last time, wasn't I? Lily nodded solemnly. My daddy says yelling isn't the answer. That's what he tells me when I get frustrated with my homework. Your daddy is right. Victoria knelt down to Lily's level. I'm sorry I yelled. I was having a really bad day, and I took it out on your dad. That wasn't fair. Lily considered this for a moment. Did you say sorry to him too? I did. Did he forgive you? Victoria glanced up at Daniel. I'm not sure. Did you forgive me, Daniel? Daniel felt his face grow warm. There was nothing to forgive. You were right to be upset. That's not the same as forgiveness. Then yes, I forgave you. Lily smiled, satisfied. Good. Now we can all be friends. She grabbed Victoria's hand with her free one, so she was now holding both adults. Come on, the penguins are waiting. And just like that, they were walking into the exhibit together. A single dad, his daughter, and the woman who had fired him 3 weeks ago. If someone had told Daniel a month ago that this would be his Saturday, he would have laughed in their face. But here he was, and somehow it felt right. The new penguin exhibit was impressive. Floor-to-ceiling glass walls that made you feel like you were underwater with the birds. Lily pressed herself against the glass, squealing every time a penguin swam past. Look at that one. He's so fast. That's a Gentoo penguin, Victoria said, coming to stand beside her. They're the fastest swimming penguins in the world. They can go up to 22 miles per hour. Lily turned to look at her, impressed. How do you know that? I read a lot. About penguins? Victoria smiled. About everything. When I was your age, I wanted to be a marine biologist. What's that? Someone who studies ocean animals. Why didn't you become one? Victoria's smile faltered slightly. Life had other plans. Daniel watched the exchange, fascinated. This was a side of Victoria he'd never seen. Warm, patient, good with kids in a way he wouldn't have expected from someone who ran a major architectural firm. Daddy, can we get ice cream? Lily asked, pressing her face back against the glass. It's 10 in the morning. So? So ice cream is not a breakfast food. But we already had breakfast. This would be second breakfast. Daniel looked at Victoria helplessly. She's been reading too much Tolkien. Victoria laughed. I think second breakfast ice cream sounds perfectly reasonable. You're not helping. I'm not trying to help. I'm trying to get ice cream. Lily spun around, delighted. See, Daddy? Ms. Victoria wants ice cream too. Traitors, Daniel muttered. I'm surrounded by traitors. They found a cart selling ice cream near the flamingo exhibit. Lily got chocolate. Victoria got vanilla. Daniel got coffee-flavored, because he figured he needed the caffeine to deal with these two. This is really good, Victoria said, sounding almost surprised. You say that like you've never had zoo ice cream before. I haven't been to a zoo since I was maybe 6. Daniel stared at her. Seriously? My mother took me once. After she died, my father wasn't exactly the zoo type. There it was again, that glimpse behind the corporate armor. The motherless child who'd raised herself while her father buried his grief in work. I'm sorry, Daniel said. That must have been hard. Victoria shrugged, but her eyes betrayed something deeper. It was what it was. You learn to adapt. Lily's mother used to love the zoo, Daniel found himself saying. She said it was the only place where adults were allowed to act like kids. She'd get more excited than Lily about the animals. She sounds wonderful. She was. Daniel watched Lily chase a pigeon that had gotten too close to her ice cream cone. I still catch myself looking for her sometimes, expecting her to be there when I turn around. Victoria was quiet for a moment. Does it get easier? The missing her? No. But the rest of it, the getting through each day, that gets a little easier. Or maybe you just get stronger. I'm not sure which. I think it's both, Victoria said softly. You get stronger because you have to, and that makes everything else feel a little easier to carry. They stood there in comfortable silence, watching Lily give up on the pigeon and return to her ice cream. It struck Daniel how natural this felt, how long it had been since he talked to another adult about something real, about grief and loss, and the daily work of surviving. Daddy, can we see the elephants next? Sure, sweetie. Finish your ice cream first. I'm eating as fast as I can. Don't eat too fast. You'll get a headache. That's a myth, Lily said matter-of-factly. Tommy Henderson said so. Tommy Henderson is 8. He's not a reliable source. Victoria laughed. She's got you there. 8-year-olds are notoriously skeptical of parental wisdom. Speaking from experience, I questioned everything my parents told me. Drove them crazy. I can imagine. They walked toward the elephant exhibit, Lily skipping ahead with her half-eaten cone. Daniel fell into step beside Victoria, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. Thank you for coming today, he said. Thank you for not thinking it was weird that I showed up. Lily seems to like you. She's a remarkable kid, Daniel. You're doing an amazing job with her. I'm just trying not to mess her up. That's what good parenting is, isn't it? Trying your best not to mess them up? Daniel looked at her. You'd be a good mom, you know. The words were out before he could stop them. Victoria's step faltered, and Daniel immediately wanted to kick himself. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. No, it's okay. Victoria's voice was strange, tight. It's just not something I think about much. Because of work? Because of everything. She stopped walking and turned to face him. Can I be honest with you, Daniel? Always. When I took over the firm, I made a promise to myself. I was going to be the best CEO my father ever could have hoped for. I was going to prove that I deserved the position, that I wasn't just some legacy hire living off his name. And for 6 months, that's all I've focused on. Work, the company, clients, numbers. That sounds exhausting. It is. Victoria smiled sadly. And then I showed up at your apartment that Saturday morning, ready to fire you. And I saw your life. I saw Lily's drawings on the walls. I saw your calendar. I saw you, in your sweatpants, looking like you hadn't slept in days, and still putting yourself between me and your daughter like you'd fight me if you had to. Daniel didn't know what to say. I realized something that morning, Victoria continued. I realized I've been so focused on not being my father's weaknesses that I forgot to learn from his strengths. He worked too much. He neglected me after my mother died. But before that, when she was still alive, he knew how to be present. He knew how to be human. Somewhere along the way, I forgot that part. You're being pretty human right now, Daniel said. I'm trying. She looked toward Lily, who had stopped to stare at a family of ducks crossing the path. When I'm around her, it feels easier. Kids don't care about quarterly reports or client meetings. They just want to know if you're real. And are you? Real? Victoria met his eyes. I'm starting to think I might be. They held each other's gaze for a long moment. Something passed between them, something that felt bigger than a conversation at the zoo, bigger than a boss and her remote employee, bigger than two people who'd met through a firing. Daddy, Miss Victoria, look at the ducks! The moment broke. Daniel smiled and called back, We see them, sweetie. They spent the rest of the morning wandering the zoo together. They saw the elephants and the giraffes and the big cats. They had lunch at a picnic table near the reptile house, sharing fries and laughing when Lily tried to convince them that snakes would make good pets. Absolutely not, Daniel said firmly. But they're so cool and quiet. They don't bark like dogs. They also eat mice. Whole. Lily's face scrunched up. Okay, maybe not a snake. By early afternoon, Lily was starting to fade. Her steps grew slower, her eyes heavier. Daniel knew the signs. I think someone needs a nap. I'm not tired, Lily protested, even as she yawned. Sure you're not. Daniel scooped her up, and she immediately rested her head on his shoulder. Say goodbye to Miss Victoria. Bye, Miss Victoria, Lily mumbled. Thanks for the penguins. Thanks for letting me tag along, Victoria said softly. Will you come to dinner sometime? Lily asked, her eyes already closing. Daddy makes really good spaghetti. Daniel felt his face burn. Lily, I'd like that, Victoria said, and when Daniel looked at her, she was smiling. If your dad doesn't mind. He doesn't mind, Lily said confidently. He thinks you're pretty. Okay, time to go, Daniel said quickly, already walking toward the exit. She's delirious from exhaustion, doesn't know what she's saying. But Victoria's laughter followed him across the parking lot, warm and real, and Daniel couldn't help but smile, despite his embarrassment. 2 weeks later, Victoria came to dinner. Daniel spent the entire day stress cleaning the apartment, even though he knew it was ridiculous. He vacuumed twice. He dusted surfaces that probably hadn't been dusted since Rachel was alive. He changed his shirt 3 times before settling on the first one he'd put on. "You're being weird," Lily observed from the couch where she was watching cartoons. "I'm not being weird. I'm cleaning." "You're being weird about cleaning. That's still weird." Daniel threw a dish towel at her, which she caught with a giggle. Victoria arrived at 6 o'clock sharp, carrying a bottle of wine and a small wrapped package. "Is that for me?" Lily asked immediately. "Lily, manners! Please, is that for me?" Victoria laughed and handed over the package. "It's for you. I hope you don't have this one already." Lily tore off the wrapping to reveal a book. "Everything you need to know about penguins." "I don't have this one." Lily clutched it to her chest. "Thank you, Miss Victoria." "You're welcome, sweetheart." Daniel took the wine and led Victoria into the kitchen. "You didn't have to bring anything." "My mother taught me never to show up empty-handed. It's one of the few lessons I remember." "Well, thank you. This is really nice wine. Much nicer than anything I have." I figured spaghetti deserved good wine. Dinner was easier than Daniel had expected. Lily dominated the conversation, telling Victoria about her school and her friends and her ongoing campaign for a pet. Victoria listened with genuine interest, asking questions, laughing at Lily's jokes, even the ones that weren't particularly funny. At one point, Daniel caught himself just watching them. Victoria, leaning forward to hear something Lily was whispering. Lily, giggling at whatever response Victoria gave. It felt so natural, so right. Like this was how things were supposed to be. After dinner, Lily insisted on showing Victoria her room and all her penguin-related possessions. Daniel cleaned up the kitchen, listening to their voices floating down the hallway. Laughter, exclamations, the sound of Mr. Waddles being introduced. "She's amazing," Victoria said when she finally emerged, leaving Lily to read her new book. "She's my whole world." "I can tell." Victoria leaned against the kitchen doorway. "You're really good together." "We figured it out, day by day." "That's all anyone can do." Daniel dried his hands and turned to face her. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why did you really come today?" Victoria's expression shifted. Something vulnerable flickered behind her eyes before she could hide it. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you're my boss, or my contract employer, or whatever we're calling it. You could have just sent a nice email about the penguin exhibit. You didn't have to come to the zoo. You didn't have to come to dinner." Victoria was quiet for a long moment. "You're right. I didn't have to." "So why did you?" She looked at him, and Daniel saw something in her eyes that made his breath catch. Fear. Hope. Longing. "Because I wanted to," she said simply. "Because for the first time in I don't know how long, I wanted to be somewhere that wasn't work. I wanted to be with people who see me as a person, not a CEO. I wanted—" She stopped, shook her head. "This is going to sound crazy. Try me. I wanted to feel like I belonged somewhere." The words hung in the air between them. Daniel felt something crack open in his chest, that wall he'd built after Rachel died, the one that kept everyone at a safe distance. "You belong here," he said, and the words surprised him even as he spoke them. "I mean, if you want to. Lily adores you, and I—" He stopped. Victoria stepped closer. "You what?" Daniel looked at her, really looked at her. At the woman who had fired him and then saved him, who had seen his mess of a life and decided it was worth investing in, who showed up at zoos and dinner tables and text messages about penguins. "I'm glad you came," he said finally. "Both times. All the times." Victoria smiled, and it was the softest smile he'd ever seen from her. "Me too." They stood there in his kitchen, close enough to touch but not quite touching. The moment stretched between them, heavy with possibility. And then Lily's voice broke the silence. "Danny, Miss Victoria, come look at my book." There's a picture of a penguin that looks exactly like Mr. Waddles. Victoria laughed, stepping back. "Duty calls." "Always," Daniel agreed. But as they walked toward Lily's room together, Victoria's hand brushed against his. And she didn't pull away. Neither did he. Friday dinners became a tradition. It happened without anyone planning it. After that first spaghetti night, Victoria had texted Daniel, asking if Lily had finished her penguin book. Daniel had replied that she'd finished it twice. Victoria had asked what her favorite penguin fact was. Lily had insisted on answering herself, which meant Daniel had to help her type a long message about how emperor penguin dads keep the eggs warm while the moms go hunting. Somehow, that had turned into Victoria bringing over pizza the following Friday, and then tacos the Friday after that. And before Daniel knew it, 3 months had passed, and Victoria Hayes was a permanent fixture in their weekly routine. "She's coming again tonight, right?" Lily asked, bouncing on the couch while Daniel tried to finish a design revision. "She's coming." "What's she bringing?" "I don't know. It's a surprise." "I hope it's Chinese food. We haven't had Chinese food in forever." "We had Chinese food 2 weeks ago." "That's forever when you're 8. Daniel laughed and saved his work. The remote arrangement was still going strong. 3 major projects completed, 2 more in progress, and client satisfaction numbers that made Victoria's quarterly reports look impressive. She'd started offering the same flexible option to other employees with family obligations. 2 single mothers and a father caring for his elderly parent had already taken her up on it. "You're changing the company culture," Daniel had told her last week. "I'm just doing what makes sense," Victoria had replied. "Happy employees do better work. It's basic math." But Daniel knew it was more than math. Victoria was becoming someone different from the woman who had stormed into his apartment 6 months ago. Softer, more open, more human. The doorbell rang at exactly 6:30. "She's here!" Lily sprinted to the door before Daniel could get up. "Lily, wait!" Too late. The door flew open, and Lily launched herself at Victoria like a small missile. "Oof!" Victoria laughed, catching her. "Hello to you too." "What did you bring? Is it Chinese food? Please tell me it's Chinese food." "It's Chinese food." Lily's shriek of joy could probably be heard 3 apartments down. Dinner was loud and messy, the way dinners with Lily always were. She talked about school and her friends, and the science project she was working on about, predictably, penguins. Victoria listened and asked questions, and laughed in all the right places. After dinner, while Lily was in the bath, Daniel and Victoria cleaned up together. It had become their routine. He washed, she dried. They moved around each other in the small kitchen with an ease that had developed gradually, naturally. "The quarterly client dinner is next Saturday," Victoria said, stacking plates in the cabinet. "I remember. I've been dreading it." "Why?" Daniel rinsed a glass and handed it to her. "I haven't done a social event in 3 years. I'm pretty sure I've forgotten how to make small talk." "Small talk is overrated. Just nod and ask people about themselves. They'll do all the work." "Is that your secret?" Victoria smiled. "My secret is that I hate these things as much as you do. But they're important for the business, so we suffer through them together." "Together?" "I mean," Victoria's cheeks flushed slightly, "the team. Together as a team." Daniel watched her, noting the way she suddenly became very focused on drying the glass in her hands. Something had shifted between them over the past months. Something neither of them had named or acknowledged directly. It lived in the spaces between words, in the glances that lasted a beat too long, in the way their hands brushed when passing dishes. "Victoria, can I ask you something?" You always ask that before asking something serious. Just ask. Fair enough. Daniel turned off the water and leaned against the counter. What are we doing? Victoria stopped drying. What do you mean? I mean this. Friday dinners, text messages about penguins, zoo trips. What is this? The kitchen was suddenly very quiet. From down the hall, they could hear Lily singing to herself in the bath, some song about a rainbow fish. I don't know, Victoria admitted. I've been trying not to think about it too hard. Why not? Because if I think about it, I have to define it. And if I define it, I have to face the fact that you work for me, and this could be incredibly complicated. And I'm not good at complicated. You run a multi-million-dollar architectural firm. Your entire life is complicated. Business complicated is different. Emotions complicated is... She shook her head. I don't have a good track record with emotions. What does that mean? Victoria set down the glass and turned to face him fully. I was engaged once. Did I ever tell you that? Daniel blinked. No. His name was Marcus. We met in business school. He was smart, ambitious, driven. Everything I thought I wanted. We were together for 4 years. What happened? I happened. Victoria's voice was flat, matter of fact. I got so focused on proving myself at my father's company that I stopped being present for the relationship. Marcus said it was like being engaged to a ghost. He was right. So he left. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was 5 years ago, and he was right to leave. I wasn't capable of being a real partner back then. I'm not sure I'm capable of it now. Daniel reached out and took her hand. She flinched slightly, surprised, but didn't pull away. You're different now, he said. How do you know? Because I watch you with Lily. The way you listen to her. The way you remember things she told you weeks ago. The way you show up every Friday, even when you're exhausted from work, and would probably rather be anywhere else. That's not someone who's absent. That's someone who's trying. Victoria's eyes glistened. Daniel. Daddy, I'm done with my bath. The moment shattered. Daniel let go of Victoria's hand. I should go check on her. Of course. He started down the hallway, then stopped. Victoria? Yes? I don't know what this is either, but I'm glad it's something. He didn't wait for her response. He couldn't. Because if he looked at her any longer, he might do something stupid like kiss her, and he wasn't sure either of them was ready for that. The quarterly client dinner was held at the Riverside Grand, the kind of restaurant where the menu didn't have prices because, if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. Daniel tugged at his collar as he walked through the lobby, feeling underdressed despite wearing his best suit. You look fine, Victoria said, appearing beside him. Stop fidgeting. I'm not fidgeting. You've adjusted your tie 4 times since you walked in. Okay, I'm fidgeting. Victoria smiled. She was wearing a deep blue dress that made her eyes look almost sapphire. Her hair was swept up in an elegant twist. She looked like someone from a different world than the woman who showed up at his apartment in jeans and brought Chinese takeout. You look beautiful, Daniel said before he could stop himself. Victoria's smile softened. Thank you. Now come on, time to mingle. Mingling turned out to be as exhausting as Daniel had feared. He met clients he'd never seen face to face, shook hands until his palm was sore, and made small talk about projects and timelines and the state of the real estate market. Everyone was polite, professional, and utterly draining, but he noticed something as the evening went on. Whenever he looked for Victoria, she was watching him. And whenever their eyes met, she smiled. Small, private smiles meant only for him. The remote guy, right? A man in his 60s approached Daniel at the bar. Harold Westfield, the client from the project that had nearly cost Daniel his job. The one who did our building? Yes, sir, Daniel Carter. Hell of a design. Westfield shook his hand vigorously. That atrium is the talk of the industry. People come just to see it. Thank you. That means a lot. Victoria told me about your situation. Single dad, working from home. Westfield lowered his voice. That takes guts. Most people wouldn't have the discipline. I don't have much choice. My daughter needs me. That's exactly what I mean. You could have taken the easy way, put her in more daycare, worked the traditional route. But you didn't. You figured out a different path. Westfield clapped him on the shoulder. That's the kind of thinking that produces great architecture. Keep at it, son. Daniel watched the older man walk away, feeling something warm bloom in his chest. He'd spent so long feeling like a failure, like he couldn't do anything right, couldn't balance work and fatherhood, couldn't be what anyone needed him to be. Hearing someone acknowledge the struggle, actually see it as a strength, was more validating than he could express. What did Harold want? Victoria appeared at his elbow. To complement the atrium. He's not wrong. It's exceptional work. Did you tell him about my situation? Victoria hesitated. I told him you were a single father who needed flexibility. I thought it might help him understand why the remote arrangement matters. You didn't have to do that. I know. I wanted to. She looked at him. I want people to know what you've accomplished, Daniel. You're not just some guy who works from home. You're someone who reinvented his entire career to be there for his daughter. That's worth celebrating. Daniel didn't know what to say, so he said the only thing he could think of. Dance with me. Victoria blinked. What? There's a band. People are dancing. He held out his hand. Dance with me. I'm terrible at dancing. So am I. We can be terrible together. Something flickered across Victoria's face. Fear, hope, longing, before she took his hand. Okay. The band was playing something slow, a jazz standard Daniel vaguely recognized. He led Victoria to the dance floor, hyper-aware of the eyes that followed them. The CEO dancing with her remote contractor. That would be gossip for weeks. He didn't care. This is going to cause talk, Victoria murmured, as if reading his thoughts. I know. People will assume things. Let them. Daniel. I'm tired of being careful. He pulled her slightly closer. I've spent 3 years being careful, being cautious, being afraid of feeling anything, because feeling something might mean losing it again. Victoria looked up at him. And now? Now I'm standing in a restaurant I can't afford, wearing a suit that's too small, dancing with a woman who fired me 6 months ago. And I don't want to be anywhere else. Daniel, I need to tell you something. Okay. I've been offered a position, a consulting role with a firm in New York. It would mean leaving Hayes Architecture. Daniel's step faltered. What? They approached me 2 months ago. I've been going back and forth, trying to decide. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wasn't sure how to. Victoria's voice was tight. Because every time I thought about New York, I thought about Friday dinners and zoo trips and Lily's laugh. And I couldn't figure out how to put that in a pro-con list. Daniel stopped dancing. They stood in the middle of the floor, people swirling around them, music playing on. Are you going to take it? I don't know. What's the pro-con list say? Victoria laughed, but it was strained. The pro side says it's a massive career opportunity. More money, more prestige, a chance to build something from scratch without living in my father's shadow. And the con side? Victoria met his eyes. The con side only has one thing. What? Staying means staying. It means admitting that Friday dinners and zoo trips and watching Lily grow up matters more to me than any job. It means taking a risk on something I can't control. She paused. It means taking a risk on you.
The words hung between them. Daniel's heart was pounding so hard he was sure she could hear it. Victoria, I can't tell you what to do. I know. Your career is your decision. New York is an incredible opportunity. I would never ask you to give that up for... For what? Daniel took a breath. For me. For us. For whatever this is. Victoria stepped closer.
What if I want you to ask? What? What if I'm standing here, hoping you'll give me a reason to stay? Her voice cracked. Because I'm terrified, Daniel. I'm terrified of how much I want this. I've spent my whole life building walls, keeping people at a distance, making sure I never need anyone. And then I met you and Lily, and suddenly all those walls feel like prisons. Daniel reached up and cupped her face in his hands. Then let them down. It's not that simple. Nothing worth having is simple. Trust me, I know. Raising Lily alone is the hardest thing I've ever done, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. That's different. Is it? You love something, you commit to it. You show up even when it's hard. You figure it out day by day. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. I don't know if I can be what you need. You already are. How can you say that? Because Lily asks about you every day. Because the first thing she said this morning was, Is Victoria coming tonight? Because when I watch you with her, I see someone who wants to be present, someone who's trying, someone who's learning how to let people in. A tear slipped down Victoria's cheek. Daniel brushed it away with his thumb. Stay, he said. Not for me, not even for Lily. Stay because you deserve to be happy. And I think, maybe, we could make each other happy. You think? I know, Daniel smiled. Stay, Victoria. Take the risk. I promise it's worth it. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. The music swelled around them. People danced past, lost in their own worlds. Then she laughed. A wet, broken, beautiful sound. You know, when I showed up at your apartment 6 months ago, I thought I had my whole life figured out. And now? Now I realize I didn't know anything. She stood on her toes and pressed her forehead against his. Yes. Yes, what? Yes, I'll stay. Yes, I'll take the risk. Yes to Friday dinners and zoo trips and whatever comes next. Daniel's heart soared. Yeah? Yeah. He kissed her then, right there in the middle of the dance floor, in front of clients and colleagues and anyone else who cared to watch. It wasn't a gentle kiss or a tentative one. It was the kiss of someone who had been waiting for permission to feel something real. When they finally pulled apart, Victoria was smiling through her tears. People are definitely going to talk now. Good. Let them. They danced for the rest of the evening, barely speaking, just holding each other. When the band played its final song, they walked out of the restaurant hand in hand. What happens now? Victoria asked as they waited for the valet. Now we go back to normal. Friday dinners, zoo trips. You come over, I make spaghetti, Lily talks your ear off about penguins. That sounds perfect. There's one difference, though. What's that? Daniel pulled her close. Now, when Lily goes to bed, I don't have to pretend I'm not hoping you'll stay a little longer. Victoria laughed. Is that what you've been doing? For months, it's been torture. Poor thing. I'm serious. You have no idea how many times I almost kissed you while doing dishes. Why didn't you? Because I wasn't sure you felt the same way. Because I was scared. Because I kept thinking about Rachel and feeling guilty for wanting someone new. Victoria's expression softened. And now? Daniel thought about it, about Rachel, who had loved him so completely, about the years of grief that had followed her death, about the slow, painful process of learning to live again.
Now I think she'd want me to be happy, he said quietly. She'd want Lily to have someone who loves her. She'd want me to stop being afraid. She sounds like she was an incredible person. She was, and I'll always love her. But there's room in my heart for more. He squeezed Victoria's hand.
There's room for you. The valet pulled up with Victoria's car. Daniel opened the door for her, then leaned in. Friday? Friday, Victoria confirmed. I'll bring dessert. Lily's going to lose her mind. I know. That's why I'm bringing extra. Daniel kissed her one more time, soft and slow. Good night, Victoria. Good night, Daniel. He watched her drive away, the taillights disappearing into the night. Then he stood there for a long moment, breathing in the cool air, feeling lighter than he had in years. His phone buzzed, a text from Victoria. Thank you for giving me a reason to stay. Daniel smiled and typed back, Thank you for staying. The drive home was quiet, but not the heavy quiet of loneliness. It was the quiet of anticipation, of possibility, of a future that finally felt like it might be worth looking forward to. When he got home, he checked on Lily, who was sound asleep with Mr. Waddles tucked under her chin. He stood in her doorway for a long time, watching her breathe, thinking about all the moments that had led to this one. The accident that had taken Rachel, the years of struggling alone, the morning Victoria had shown up screaming, the zoo, the dinners, the dance. Life was strange. It took things from you without warning, broke you in ways you didn't think you could survive. But sometimes, if you were lucky, it gave things back. Different things, new things, things worth fighting for. Daniel turned off the hall light and went to bed, already counting the days until Friday. End of Part 4. Friday came faster than any Friday had ever come before. Daniel spent the whole week in a daze, moving through his work and his routine with Lily, while his mind kept drifting back to the dance floor, to the kiss, to Victoria's tear-streaked face when she said yes. He hadn't told Lily yet. He wasn't sure how to explain it, or even what to call it. They were together now, officially. But what did that mean in the context of an 8-year-old's understanding? How do you tell your daughter that the woman who used to be Daddy's boss, who once showed up yelling at their front door, was now something more? You're being weird again, Lily announced Wednesday evening, watching Daniel stir pasta sauce that didn't need stirring. I'm not being weird. You've been smiling at your phone all week. You never smile at your phone. Maybe I'm just happy. About what? Daniel turned off the stove and crouched down to Lily's level. Can I tell you something? Is it bad? No, sweetie, it's good. At least, I think it's good. Lily tilted her head. Is it about Ms. Victoria? Daniel blinked. How did you know? Because you always smile like that when she texts you, and you clean the apartment extra good before she comes over, and you wear the nice shirt. I do not wear a nice... Daniel stopped. He was, in fact, wearing the nice shirt. Okay, maybe I wear the nice shirt. Lily giggled. So what about Ms. Victoria? Daniel took a breath. I think Ms. Victoria and I are going to be more than friends now. Like boyfriend and girlfriend? Something like that. Lily considered this with the serious expression she always got when processing something important. Does that mean she'll come over more? Probably. And she'll be at my birthday party? If you want her there. And she'll be here for Christmas? Daniel felt his throat tighten. He hadn't thought that far ahead. Christmas was still months away, but the fact that Lily was already picturing Victoria there, part of their holiday traditions, made his heart ache in the best possible way. Would you like that? He asked. Lily nodded enthusiastically. I want her to see me open presents, and I want to give her a present too. Do you think she'd like a penguin? A stuffed one, not a real one. Real ones would be hard to wrap. Daniel laughed and pulled her into a hug, I think she'd love a penguin. Good. Lily hugged him back, then pulled away with a suddenly serious expression. Daddy? Yes, sweetie? Does this mean you're not sad about Mommy anymore? The question hit Daniel like a wave. He sat back on his heels, looking at his daughter's face. Rachel's eyes, Rachel's nose, that same little furrow between her brows when she was worried. I'll always miss Mommy, he said carefully. That will never go away. But being happy with someone new doesn't mean I stopped loving her.
The heart doesn't work like that. It doesn't run out of room. Like how I love you and Grandma and Mr. Waddles all at the same time? Exactly like that. Lily smiled, satisfied with this explanation. Okay then, I think Mommy would like Miss Victoria. She's nice. I think Mommy would like her too. And she brings good snacks. Daniel laughed. That's definitely important. Friday evening, Victoria arrived with chocolate cake and champagne. The champagne was for her and Daniel. The chocolate cake was Lily's demand. You brought both, Lily exclaimed, bouncing on her toes. I always keep my promises. Victoria set the cake on the counter and handed Lily a small wrapped package. And this is for you. Lily tore it open to find a silver charm bracelet with a tiny penguin dangling from it. It's beautiful. Lily held it up, watching the penguin catch the light. Daddy, look. I see it, sweetie. What do you say? Thank you, Miss Victoria. Lily threw her arms around Victoria's waist. Victoria hugged her back, meeting Daniel's eyes over Lily's head. Her expression said everything. The nervousness, the hope, the tentative joy of being welcomed into something she'd never let herself want before. Dinner was louder than usual, full of laughter and stories and Lily's endless questions. When are you coming back? Can we go to the zoo again? Do you want to see my new drawings? Are you going to marry my daddy? Daniel nearly choked on his wine. Lily? What? Tommy Henderson's mom got a boyfriend and now they're married. That's how it works. We're not. Daniel looked helplessly at Victoria. Victoria, to her credit, didn't miss a beat. Marriage is a big step, Lily. Right now, your dad and I are just figuring out how to be good partners for each other. Does that make sense? Lily thought about it. Like when you start a new video game and you have to learn the controls first? Exactly like that. Okay, Lily nodded sagely. But when you finish learning, then you get married? We'll see, Daniel said quickly. Now who wants cake? Later, after cake and bath time and 3 bedtime stories, because Lily kept bargaining for more, Daniel and Victoria sat on the couch with the rest of the champagne. She asked if we're getting married, Victoria said, swirling her glass. She's 8. She asks if we're getting a unicorn at least once a week. Still, it's a big concept for her to be thinking about. Daniel turned to face her. Does it scare you? Victoria was quiet for a moment. Not as much as I thought it would. Really? Really? She took a sip of champagne. A year ago, the idea of marriage, of any serious commitment, would have sent me running. But now, she trailed off, shaking her head. Now what? Now I'm sitting on your second-hand couch, drinking champagne after eating chocolate cake with an 8-year-old, and I can't imagine wanting to be anywhere else. She laughed softly. My therapist would say that's growth. You have a therapist? Started seeing her 3 months ago, right around the time I realized Friday dinners were the best part of my week. Daniel set down his glass and took her hand. I'm proud of you. For going to therapy? For trying. For showing up. For being brave enough to want something different. Victoria squeezed his hand. You make it easy. No, I don't. I'm a single dad with a messy apartment and a daughter who asks inappropriate questions about marriage. I'm the opposite of easy. You're real, Victoria said. That's better than easy. They sat together in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes when two people don't feel the need to fill every moment with words. Outside, the city hummed along. Inside, the apartment was warm and still. Victoria? I'm glad you showed up that Saturday morning. Even the yelling part. Victoria laughed. I was pretty terrible.
You were pretty honest. It's the same thing sometimes. Is that your way of saying I should yell at you more often? Please don't. Noted. The months that followed were a revelation. Victoria officially declined the New York position. When her board asked why, she told them she was committed to transforming Hayes Architectural Design into a company that valued its employees' whole lives, not just their productivity. The board was skeptical. Victoria didn't care. Let them be skeptical, she told Daniel. Results speak louder than doubts. And the results did speak. The flexible work program expanded. Employee satisfaction scores climbed. Client retention improved. 3 major industry publications ran stories about Hayes Architecture's innovative approach to work-life balance, all citing Victoria's leadership. You're famous, Lily announced one evening, holding up Victoria's phone where a news article was displayed. I'm not famous. It says you're a visionary. That sounds famous. It sounds like marketing, Victoria said dryly. Don't believe everything you read. But Daniel could see the pride behind her deflection. Victoria had spent her whole life trying to live up to her father's legacy. Now she was building her own. 6 months after the client dinner, Victoria asked Daniel a question that stopped him in his tracks. What would you think about me moving in? They were doing dishes again, their usual routine, and Daniel nearly dropped the plate he was holding. Moving in? Here? I know it's small. I know my apartment is bigger. But Lily's whole life is here. Her school is nearby, her friends, everything familiar. I wouldn't want to uproot her. Daniel set down the plate. You've thought about this. I've thought about nothing else for weeks. Victoria turned to face him. I spend more time here than at my own place anyway. My apartment feels like a hotel. This feels like home. Victoria, are you sure? This is a big step. I know. You'd be giving up a lot. Your space, your privacy. I'd be gaining more. Victoria took his hands. Daniel, I'm not suggesting this lightly. I've thought about every angle. I've talked to my therapist about it. I've even looked into what it would mean legally, for Lily, for us. What did your therapist say? She said I should ask myself if I'm running toward something or away from something. Victoria smiled. And I realized I'm running toward something for the first time in my life. Daniel felt his heart pounding. What about the office? People will definitely talk. Let them. I'm tired of making decisions based on what people might say. She squeezed his hands. I want to wake up next to you. I want to have breakfast with Lily every morning, not just Fridays. I want to be part of your life in a real way, not just a visitor. Daniel looked at her, this woman who had transformed from his nightmare boss to his partner, his confidant, his best friend. The woman who had given him a second chance when she could have walked away. The woman his daughter adored. Yes, he said. Yes? Yes, move in. Yes, wake up next to me. Yes, to all of it. Victoria's face broke into the widest smile he'd ever seen. Really? Really. She threw her arms around him, and Daniel held her tight, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, feeling her heart beating against his chest. We have to tell Lily, Victoria said into his shoulder. She's going to lose her mind. In a good way? In the best way. They told Lily together that weekend. Her reaction exceeded all expectations. "You're going to live here? Like, all the time? Like, forever?" "That's the plan," Victoria said. Lily screamed so loudly that the neighbor knocked on the wall. "This is the best day of my whole entire life!" She grabbed Victoria's hand and started pulling her toward her bedroom. "You can help me decorate, and we can have movie nights every night."
And you can braid my hair. Can you braid hair? I'll teach you if you can't. Daniel watched them disappear down the hallway, Lily's excited chatter echoing off the walls. His eyes were burning, but he didn't try to stop the tears. This was what happiness felt like. He'd almost forgotten. Victoria moved in 3 weeks later. It wasn't a smooth transition. Her furniture didn't fit. Her clothes overflowed the small closet. She had opinions about how the kitchen should be organized that directly conflicted with Daniel's system. They had their first real fight about where to put her books. "You can't just stack them on the floor." "There's no room on the shelves." "Then we get more shelves." "Where? The apartment is already too small." Lily appeared in the doorway, Mr. Waddles under her arm. "Are you fighting?" Daniel and Victoria looked at each other, then at Lily. "We're having a discussion," Daniel said. "It sounds like fighting." Victoria sighed and crouched down to Lily's level. "You're right. We were fighting, and I'm sorry you had to hear it. Are you going to leave?" The question was so small, so scared, that it broke Daniel's heart. Victoria pulled Lily into a hug. "No, sweetheart, I'm not going to leave. Sometimes people who love each other disagree. It doesn't mean anything is wrong. It just means we need to figure out a solution together." "Like when me and Emma fight about whose turn it is on the swings?" "Exactly like that." Lily considered this. "Usually we decide to both go on the swings at the same time." "Compromise," Daniel said. "That's a great idea." "So what's the compromise for the books?" Victoria and Daniel looked at each other again. This time they both started laughing. "I have no idea," Victoria admitted. "But we'll figure it out." They did figure it out. They figured out the books and the kitchen and the closet space, and 100 other small conflicts that arose from two adults trying to merge their lives. It wasn't perfect. It was messy and complicated and sometimes frustrating. But it was real, and real was better than perfect. 1 year to the day after Victoria had stormed into the apartment yelling, "You're fired!" Daniel woke up early and made breakfast. Pancakes, Lily's favorite. Orange juice, Victoria's preference. Coffee, his necessity. Lily bounded into the kitchen first, already dressed for school. "Pancakes! Yes!" "Special occasion," Daniel said, flipping one onto her plate. "What occasion?" "You'll see." Victoria appeared a few minutes later, still in her pajamas, hair mussed from sleep. She'd stopped wearing makeup on weekend mornings. Daniel loved that, loved the casualness of it, the intimacy of seeing her unguarded. "Something smells amazing." "Daddy says it's a special occasion, but he won't tell me what," Lily reported. "Is that so?" Victoria raised an eyebrow at Daniel. "Sit down, both of you." They sat. Daniel served the pancakes, poured the juice and coffee, then took his seat across from them. "1 year ago today," he said, "a very angry woman showed up at our door and changed everything." Victoria groaned. "Do we have to commemorate the worst morning of my life?" "I think we do, because that worst morning led to the best year of mine." Victoria's expression softened. "Daniel." "Let me finish." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I wasn't planning to do this today. I was going to wait for a special dinner, somewhere fancy, the way these things are supposed to happen. But then I woke up this morning and thought, why? Why wait for a perfect moment
when every moment with you already feels perfect. Lily gasped. Daddy, is that what I think it is? Daniel opened the box.
Inside was a simple diamond ring, elegant and understated. Something Victoria had admired in a store window months ago. Something she didn't know he'd noticed. Victoria Hayes, Daniel said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. You came into my life like a hurricane. You fired me, saved me, and somehow fell in love with me in the process. You showed me that second chances are real. You showed Lily what it looks like when someone chooses to stay. You've become our family in every way that matters. Victoria's eyes were filling with tears. I don't have much to offer, Daniel continued. A small apartment, a demanding daughter, a career that sometimes takes over my weekends. But I have a heart that's completely, totally, irreversibly yours. And I'd like to spend the rest of my life proving that you made the right choice when you stayed. Daddy, you have to ask the question, Lily stage whispered. Daniel laughed, tears now streaming down his own face. Will you marry me? Victoria didn't answer immediately. She stood up, walked around the table, and pulled Daniel to his feet. Then she kissed him, deeply, thoroughly, in a way that made Lily make exaggerated gagging noises. Is that a yes? Daniel asked when they finally broke apart. That's a yes. That's a million yeses. That's every yes I have. Lily shrieked and threw herself at both of them, turning the embrace into a three-way hug that nearly knocked them all over. We're going to be a real family, Lily cried. Like, official, with papers and everything. We've been a real family for a while now, Victoria said, stroking Lily's hair. But yes, now with papers. Can I be the flower girl? Please, please, please? You can be whatever you want to be. I want to be the flower girl and the ring bearer and the person who throws the rice. We'll discuss it, Daniel said, laughing through his tears. They stood there in the kitchen, the three of them, holding on to each other as the morning light streamed through the windows. The pancakes were getting cold. The coffee was getting lukewarm. None of it mattered. I love you, Victoria whispered against Daniel's neck. I love you too. Both of you. Even when I yell? Especially when you yell. It's how I know you care. Victoria laughed and pulled back to look at him. You know, I never thanked you. For what? For not giving up. For not letting me push you away. For seeing something in me worth staying for, even when I couldn't see it myself. Daniel cupped her face in his hands. You made it easy. That's not true, and you know it. Okay, it wasn't easy, but it was worth it. You were worth it. You always will be. The wedding took place 6 months later in the backyard of Victoria's childhood home, now sold, but the new owners had graciously agreed to let them use the space for the ceremony. It was small, intimate, just family and close friends. Lily was indeed the flower girl, the ring bearer, and the person who threw the rice. Daniel's parents flew in from Arizona. Rachel's mother came too, tears in her eyes as she hugged Victoria and welcomed her to the family. Rachel would have loved you, she told Victoria. You're giving her girls the life she would have wanted for them. Victoria couldn't speak. She just held the older woman and let the tears fall. The ceremony was simple. The vows were not. I promised to show up, Victoria said, her voice trembling but strong. Not just on the good days, but especially on the hard ones. I promise to put down my phone when Lily wants to talk. I promise to never stop trying to be the person you both deserve. I promise to stay. Daniel's vows were even shorter. I promise to love you through everything. The fights about books, the disagreements about kitchen organization, the mornings when neither of us wants to make breakfast. I promise to be your partner in all of it. And I promise that no matter what happens, you'll never have to be alone again.
They exchanged rings. They kissed. Lily cheered louder than anyone. At the reception, Daniel found a moment alone with Victoria on the porch of the old house. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "Mrs. Carter," he said, trying out the name. "I'm keeping my last name for work," Victoria reminded him. "I know, but can I call you Mrs. Carter at home?" Victoria smiled. "You can call me whatever you want." "How about the best thing that ever happened to me?" "That's a bit long for everyday use." "Worth it, though." They stood together, watching the sunset, listening to the laughter of their guests behind them. "1 year ago," Victoria said softly, "1 year ago, you fired me." "Best decision I ever made." "Second best," Daniel corrected. "Staying was the best." Victoria leaned into him. "No, staying was the inevitable part. Once I saw what I could have, what we could be together, there was no other choice." "You could have taken New York." "I could have, but New York didn't have you. It didn't have Lily. It didn't have Friday dinners and zoo trips and burnt pancakes on Saturday mornings." "I don't burn the pancakes anymore." "You burned them last week." "That was one time." Victoria laughed and kissed his cheek. "I love you, Daniel Carter, burnt pancakes and all." "I love you too, Victoria Hayes, who's keeping her name for work." "That's definitely too long for everyday use." "Worth it, though." They stayed on the porch until the stars came out. Two people who had found each other through the strangest of circumstances. A firing, a second chance, a series of Friday dinners that had turned into something neither of them expected. Life was strange that way. It broke you and healed you. It took things away and gave them back in different forms. It led you down paths you never planned to walk, toward destinations you never knew you needed. Daniel thought about Rachel, about the life they'd built together and the way it had ended too soon, about the years of grief that had followed, the struggle to keep going, the fear that he would never feel whole again. He didn't feel whole now, not exactly. There were still missing pieces, still scars that would never fully heal. But he felt something better than whole. He felt alive. He felt hopeful. He felt ready for whatever came next. "Daddy! Victoria!" Lily's voice carried across the yard. "They're cutting the cake!" "Coming, sweetheart!" Daniel took Victoria's hand, and together they walked back toward the light and the laughter and the life they had built together. It wasn't the life he had planned. It wasn't the life Victoria had planned either. But it was theirs, messy and beautiful and absolutely, perfectly real. And sometimes, Daniel realized, the best things in life are the ones you never saw coming. The ones that knock on your door when you least expect it, change everything you thought you knew, and leave you wondering how you ever lived any other way. The ones that start with a woman yelling, "You're fired!" and end with two words that mean everything. I